hit like, and subscribe. You're watching the Marc Lamont Hill official YouTube channel.
Peace, family. It's your brother, Marc Lamont Hill. Welcome to Night School. Every night here on the Marc Lamont Hill official YouTube channel, we hold Night School, where we break down the most controversial subjects, the most engaged debates, the most interesting topics going on in the world today. And tonight is no different. I feel like I'm close to y'all today, so I was trying to figure out. I'm sorry. I feel like I'm up in y'all grill or vice versa. I don't know. Something looked different. Anyway, let's see. There we go. Is that a little better? No, it's not better, but whatever. Point is, we here. I'm here. Excited to see you all. Excited to be here. We got some stuff to cover, and we're going to do it. Y'all are the absolute best, man. A couple of things going on in the world today that I want to get at y'all about before we call it a night. But thank you all for watching. Thank you all for supporting. We're going to get started with the stories. All right. A Trump-supporting Iraq war vet turned a quiet Sunday service into a war zone. Police say 40-year-old Thomas Sanford drove his pickup into a Mormon church in Michigan, opened fire with an assault rifle, and set the building on fire. At least 4 people were killed. 8 more were shot. And this all happened before officers gunned him down in the church parking lot. Sanford, a decorated ex-Marine, once seen rocking a Trump 2020 shirt, and the shirt read, "Make liberals cry again." Anyway, he left behind a wife and a son and a community that says he snapped. Neighbors described him as helpful and kind, even as investigators now search his home for bombs. Now, Americans should care. Not just because someone died, not just because this is another tragedy, although it is, but because it's also a story of how war, politics, and guns keep bleeding into everyday life, if you can pardon the expression. Families can't even feel safe in church. The FBI calls it an act of targeted violence, but nobody knows why this happened. Authorities say it could take weeks before we learn what really pushed him to pull the trigger. Now, some immediate thoughts are, well, someone drove a pickup truck into a Mormon church right after or soon after Charlie Kirk was killed by someone in Utah, all right, with some historic familial ties to what? The Mormon church. So some people saw this as a mental health breakdown from a Trump supporter who is exacting revenge on the Mormons because a Mormon, in their mind, attacked and killed Charlie Kirk. Now, the man who killed Charlie Kirk may or may not have been an active Mormon. It seems to me, based on everything we know, he wasn't. But even if he was, there's nothing about Mormonism that caused this death. So it would be absurd on its face. But unfortunately, the world is filled with absurd things that happen when people are not mentally stable. So I also don't know, for the record, that this man was still pro-Trump. This man could have had a lot of ideological and political conversions before this moment. So I don't want us to read into it too much, but there is a storyline that we at least need to follow. There's at least a thread that we need to trace to figure out what may have motivated someone to do something like this. But I got to tell you, regardless of the motivation, I'm just tired. I'm tired of people dying. I'm tired of people being in their houses of worship and be killed. I'm tired of people believing something and being killed because they believe it. Look, I don't romanticize resistance. I don't romanticize violence. I don't romanticize democracy. But killing people because they look at the world differently than you is not enough. And plowing into a Mormon church is not acceptable. Much more can be said about that, and it will be. But my 2 things are, one, let's be wary of the speculation, because we can do harm to people, and we can exact harm on people, and we can invite harm onto people when we do that. Number 2, we gotta get this political culture and political discourse together in the United States so things like this just don't happen. All right. This is not sufficient for some of you. Some of y'all are going to be sad. Some of you are going to be frustrated that I didn't dig into the Republicans more or drill down on MAGA more or whatever. When we have more evidence, I will say more. When I have more evidence, I will say more. It's that simple. Anyway, the government could shut down in less than 48 hours. And the people most at risk are the ones who can least afford it. After meeting with President Trump at the White House, Republicans and Democrats left pointing fingers. Your fault, your fault, your fault, your fault. And they were no closer to a deal. Republicans control the White House and they hold slim majorities in both the House and the Senate. Vice President Vance says that Democrats, quote, won't do the right thing. Senate Leader Chuck Schumer says Republicans are holding the country hostage with a bill written without any Democratic input. The standoff comes due to several reasons, but the biggest reason, the non-negotiable, the thing that it all comes down to is the Obamacare tax credits, which are set to expire at the end of the year. But let's look beyond the politics for a moment. The impact of a shutdown would hit Black America the hardest, the absolute hardest. Black workers make up 18% of the federal workforce, which is higher than their share of the population. With the racial wealth gap still wide and growing, many Black families simply don't have the cover to, or the savings to cover missed paychecks, which forces them into debt just to survive. It's rough. And I think we don't look at that angle enough. And it's not just workers. Programs that Black communities depend on. I'm talking about stuff like WIC programs, Women, Infants, and Children Food Program, food assistance, housing support like HUD, healthcare initiatives for mothers and fathers, even student aid. It could all be frozen. Families already stretched thin could see their safety nets ripped away. Now, Americans should care because what's being called a political game in Washington could deepen the financial pain and inequality facing millions across the country. If no deal is reached by Wednesday night, the shutdown will not just stall government, it will strike directly at Black workers, Black families, and the communities already living on the edge. Hope everybody's doing okay out there. Y'all all right? Yeah, good to hear your voices. Good to see your faces, even virtually. Yo, I love y'all. I appreciate y'all. We got one more story before we go tonight, and that is about your boy Diddy. Hip-hop mogul Sean Diddy Combs might be walking out of jail way sooner than anybody expected. His lawyers just told a federal judge that after serving more than a year in lockup, he's had enough punishment and that he should go home with time served. Now, remember, Diddy was convicted this past summer of transporting women for prostitution, a charge that carries up to 10 years. But he dodged the biggest bullets, and those were the sex trafficking charges and the racketeering charges. An individual RICO, we saw him beat both those. And now his legal team is already done, or they're saying they're already done with the situation. They're saying, look, he's been here for a year, 12 months exactly, in one of the toughest jails in the country. He's been getting treatment, and it's time for him to move on and let him live his certainly extraordinary life. The judge is going to decide October 3rd. If he agrees with Diddy's lawyers, Puff could be back home before Halloween. But if not, the bad boy founder is staring down nearly a decade behind bars. So the question is, does time served fit the crime, or is America about to see another celebrity escape on a serious case? In my mind, it's a great question. In my mind, somewhere in the middle. I mean, I don't have a lot of sympathy for Diddy. I got to be honest about that. But I also don't want to see somebody sort of backdoored into an excessive sentence for a minor crime. And so in between those two extremes, we have Diddy. Diddy didn't do something minor. Diddy did a lot of major shit, but he was convicted of something that was minor. Does that make sense? So Diddy did some awful things. The RICO was awful, but he wasn't convicted of it. He was charged with multiple things that he wasn't convicted of. He was charged with basically prostitution. And in the general world, none of us would say, oh, give him 10 years for prostitution if it weren't Diddy. So it seems to me that we have to make sure that those things align, that our values, big picture, align with our punishment for Puff. We also have to make sure that we're enforcing it even when it sucks. That's the thing about being an abolitionist, right? Is that sometimes, oftentimes, the people whose side you're standing on have done some real harm, and we got to figure out how to deal with that. We got to figure out how to negotiate that. But it's tough, man. That's all I can say. It's tough. I don't have sympathy if Diddy gets 10 years. I don't think it'd be right, but I don't have a lot of sympathy. If he got a year or time served, I'd understand why. They gave him 2 years and he had to serve another 10 months in prison. I'd understand. But we have to make sure that the punishment is fair. Skating with no accountability would have been bad. But treating this like he was convicted of all the crimes is unfair, and it's an end run around the Constitution. So we'll figure out what's fair. I mean, to me, if I just had to guess, I think he's going to get 2 years. I think they're going to say that way they can say, hey, you got your time served and you still can be out by the summer. I think that's the angle they're going to take, but I could be wrong. But if I just had to guess, that's what I would say. But there's a lot of other agendas that are taking place that make this a lot more complicated. Anyway, thank you. Thank you for your feedback. Thank you all for weighing in, checking in. We're going to run, but I want to thank you for watching Night School. We'll be back tomorrow night with a full show. Hope you like it then. Hope you love it now. Take care.